We're back, Season 5, Episode 12 of TheSopranosPodcast, Another Suitcase. That's the guy, Adriana, my Uncle Tony, the guy I'm going to hell for. That's a quote from Chris Moltisanti in this Season 5, Episode 12 of The Sopranos, entitled Long-Term Parking. This episode was written by Terrence Winter and directed by Tim Van Patten. Best Sopranos episode ever? Possibility. It's in the conversation, right? Am I Ubats?
Nope.
In the conversation, yeah.
Has to be. Probably.
Best, maybe not my favorite.
No, it's nobody's. By the way, we have Lily here.
Hi.
We're going to go there. I'm Chris D'Amato.
I'm Lily D'Amato.
I'm Paul Mancini.
And I'm Jordan Hugh.
And we're here to break down the fifth penultimate episode of the series. And fourth season broke the format a little bit in that it all kind of crescendoed in the finale. And I'm sure we're in for a great finale here too. But this brought back the really just boning you, for lack of articulate phrasing.
Very good.
In the penultimate episode. And this episode won Michael Imperioli and Drea de Matteo Emmys. I don't put much stock in award shows, but they got this one right. This is so well acted, a story so well told. Yeah, what a payoff to years of storytelling. When you have episodes that are quote-unquote slower of a TV show, and then you have a payoff like this, that's why you have slower episodes, because sometimes you're just laying it out nice. You're rolling out your dough, you're putting it in the oven, and then it comes out an explosive drama pizza.
There are so many steps to making bread.
That's what I'm saying. There's so many steps to...
But you just rolled it out, put it in the oven.
Well, yeah, and I didn't even
Pizza
talk about...
makes me sad.
Well, you make the tomato sauce, you got
It's
the
a
garlic.
sad pizza.
It's a sad pizza. This is a very sad pizza. Thoughts on long-term parking? Let's go around initial impressions upon end of credits here.
I guess I'll swing big when I say that I think the stakes in The Sopranos, the series, is, hey, can these guys be redeemed at all? Right? And you're, of course, focusing that question on Tony, and to a lesser extent, Christopher. That's not to say the other characters aren't important or aren't involved, but the question is really laid before them especially, right? Hey, there's this guy, he is a family man in both senses of the word. Can he turn himself around? Can he become good? Can he recognize the error of his ways? Similarly, Christopher, who has other passions, has other ideas about what his life could be like. Can he course correct? And basically, until this episode, there's like a little carrot dangle of like, maybe they can turn this around. Maybe Tony will find another life, can find something to do, can be saved either through therapy or through his own realizations. Maybe Christopher will go off and do something else. After this episode, this is officially the crossing of the Rubicon. They are now fully irredeemable. So if you go on beyond this episode, it is the feeling of like, okay, well, that question is answered. I'm now just watching a show about bad people, and that you have to kind of just make peace with that, right? There's still...
So this is a point of no return for you.
For me?
When the series starts, Tony is seeing a therapist, and of course the natural question, can she help him? Can he be helped? For you, at this point, that answer is...
It's answered for me now in this episode, and I think that's ultimately the resonance of the episode is that we lose Adriana, and how we lose her is so horrible. But in the greater aspect of the series, it's like that question for me is now answered. It's like, okay, no, there's no saving these guys at all. This is it.
Yes. So, that happened. Yeah, but I guess my first thought is, where am I? My second thought is, which one of you assholes shit in my pants? Because this episode is, it's still a gut punch. I've seen it before, and I adore it. It's very well done. It's not pleasant to watch at times, and I think there's something to the question of the characters possibly being redeemed, and I think also the decisions that are made about loyalty, about who you're with, what your long-term parking is, I guess, are these lifelong questions with lifelong implications. Adriana makes this one choice. The two important choices in the episode are Chris's and Carmela's, respectively, siding with Tony and moving back in with Tony. And in the latter of the two, we're looking at, in part, the benefits of this life. Chris's choice underlines the cost. So I think that might be another reason that it's such a great Sopranos episode, because it is all these different elements coming together and really showing you the negative and the positive, the two sides of the same coin, and how these characters, if they can, live with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is an episode I typically avoid after the first time I watched it a few years ago. But it always makes me... I can't ever shake the way I felt the first time I watched it, which was... So I'm definitely a romantic comedy kind of person. I just, like, if Nora Ephron wrote it or directed it, I'm in. You know, I'm that kind of... That's some of the media I enjoy. And they got me. I was totally, completely duped. I did not see it coming. When Syl shows up, I was like, okay... This is legit. Christopher, you know, I was along for the ride. And it's rare that I end up that present in something that I'm not thinking what might happen next. I was literally just minute to minute, which is a testament to just how good it is. But I thought I thought that they were going to get away. There was something in me that just wanted it so badly. But what was interesting was this watch around, and I don't remember the last time I watched this particular episode. I don't know how I didn't see it coming, but you know, hindsight's 20/20 and all that. Just thought that was interesting. Of like, I saw it in her that she knew. It couldn't have been more clear. So it's just interesting how, and I know I feel like I say this every time I'm on the podcast, but like how different things change when you watch them at different points in your life.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know?
Well, be kind to yourself, because it duped me the first time I ever watched it, too. I don't know where you guys were on that.
I think it duped a lot of people.
Yeah. I realized it before Adriana did, but definitely after Silvio picks her up. I mean, it dawned on... I remember the first time I was watching it, and it dawned on me that she was definitely dead. I looked at the surroundings. I'm like, there are very populous parts of New Jersey. He's driving the other way. They're surrounded by woods. They're not going to no hospital.
Yeah, part of the really good sell is that when Tony calls her to say that Chris has tried to kill himself, it's actually like very well acted. Like he's not like giving it away like at all.
Yeah, the character Tony Soprano
is
a great actor.
Yeah, so you're like, oh, okay, because conceivably that could absolutely be what happened. You know,
especially with that really brilliant scene at the gas station, which I want to talk about. But
oh, sure.
They just built this so well, and the steps the episode takes to reach its apex, it's just well told. It unfolds like a mystery. What happened at the Crazy Horse, and then Adriana's just in this. It's all of these various pressure points just come together for this one moment, and it explodes in such glorious, tragic fashion. And the fact that, of all people, to send Silvio to do this, just great. We'll talk about all of it.
Well, the perfect choice, but yeah.
We'll of course.
Talk about that.
Right. Yeah. Anyone else shows up at that
Polly
house.
shows up, she knows.
Correct. Yep. It has to be someone who is that.
Yeah. And they say it in Goodfellas, your killers show up as your friends, the ones you trust the most. So, yeah, and what a cool, quote unquote, what a sad and effective blending of stories we have here, where Tony's house is kind of coming back together and Tony's home is being built. And we'll talk about the significance of the location of the final scene in the episode, and at least as far as my opinion is concerned, why they chose to end the episode there. But the fact that his family's coming back together and Chris's is being irrevocably destroyed, just it's great tragic storytelling. I really enjoyed it. But oof, it's rough. It's rough.
Amazing that the Blundetto plot is the C plot.
Really amazing.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, structurally speaking, TV speaking.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah.
If you watched last week, then the Blundetto thing is the key piece of the plot. that's happening. So the first surprise in this episode is which storylines are there to surprise you. Because A is Adriana, B is Tony and Carmela getting back together, and C is this Blundetto thread that we just touched down on a couple times.
It's a distant C.
Yeah.
And by the way, those scenes fucking slap too, to use the modern lingo. Those scenes with Johnny are great. Especially, I love the scene with them under the bridge, where we just see John in his full smug.
Is that the GW?
Yeah, I believe so.
The
or no, they meet under the Brooklyn Bridge, actually.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. But why? What was the? Was there some?
Oh, I just thought if it was the GW, it would be literally the bridge from New York to New Jersey, which I thought would have been, symbolically cool. But
It might be the GW. No, because they do meet in Jersey.
I don't know.
That's why he says it's the last time we're going to meet like this.
Okay.
It's,
It was cool.
No,
for
that's
that
good.
reason.
That is cool. Yeah. Very good. So we start things off with the Crazy Horse, and so we see that she's under surveillance, and
Right off things off at the FBI office.
Yes.
Which is different right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Other than like Mr. Ruggiero's Neighborhood, I don't remember an episode that starts with them, and they play a huge role in this episode. The moves that they make are very important.
Yeah, and this and Mr. Ruggiero's Neighborhood are basically sister episodes. They're very much alike. No, I'm kidding.
It's like, wait a minute.
No. But yeah, so they have the place under surveillance, and Adriana's doing something suspicious. She takes something out of the garbage. What's going on there? And then the, what is it, ulcerative colitis. Good to see Aid's mom back. I always, this woman, she doesn't have very many lines, but how spot on is Adriana's mom?
No, she's perfect.
Yeah, I always want more of her when I see her, which means it's just the right amount.
So funny.
Yeah. She's planning a wedding, for Christ's sake.
The Jerry Lewis Moonface line really got me good. It's very funny.
Yeah. But doesn't take a genius to figure this out. She's rotting from the inside, just like this entire situation is rotting the family out from the inside. And it's bad news. Tony's back at home fixing the TV. So let's talk about this. As Tony and Carmela seem amicable here, Tony's fixing a setting. AJ and his friends came over. What is the... we see it throughout the rest of the episode that Carmela has softened a little bit. With the last time they were really tense, we had the scene last episode or 2 episodes ago over the pool. That very tense shot of inside the pool where you're like, oh my God, this is a very threatening. Tony had corrupted all the lawyers. Carmela was just worn out, fed up, sickened by the whole thing. And there is a softening of Carmela here. I think the reasoning becomes apparent as this episode and perhaps next episode play out, but what do we think of this shift here between Tony and Carmela, where they're entertaining by proxy? They're giving theoreticals here. Oh, if that happened, that would never happen again, and any marriage would. They're kind of talking around it, but talking about possibly getting back together.
This episode is in large part about negotiation, and a lot of scenes have a negotiating quality, and I think a lot of this early portion is Carmela resetting a format for a negotiation that she will nail this time around. You remember the first one did not go well.
No.
At Vesuvio a couple episodes ago. So I love all those aspects and how they seem to talk around all these issues. But they are getting at something. It's not an accident that Tony's fixing something mechanical that AJ fucked up, because we've been dealing with the it's nice to have a man around the house dynamic since the beginning of the season. It's a really simple setup, and like a couple of the other early scenes, these are really fast. They're really fast, and they're moving the episode along. This episode's not short. It's 55 minutes.
It flies, though.
It flies by because of how intense it is, and because of some of these short beats. Some of the scenes are 30 seconds long, some of them are 10 seconds long, and they move. It's really good.
I would only contribute that Carmela seems to be test driving a decision that she's already made. It seems to be, at least the read on the scene for me, is that she's already decided she's going to get back with Tony. I think the tragedy, the sad part, is that he's really left her no other choice.
Right.
The other choice would be to have a long, drawn-out battle with this man, not get back together, and come away with probably nothing. So I think, as Paul puts it, it's negotiating. Well, if we're getting back together, how much can I get out of it? Right. Let me start to feel around those edges.
Yeah, she knows she can't get out. Isn't that the whole moral of this episode? Is you can't get out. They're in too deep. And so he's beaten her into submission. She has tested the waters, right? And there's no getting out. And so she might as well, right? This isn't working. Them not living together. It's nice to have a man around the house.
Sure.
Yeah.
But my point in this whole situation is that Carmela is also no dummy. I don't want to call it, out of respect for the dead, I don't want to call Adriana a dummy, but Carmela is sharper than Adriana, for sure. And I think what she's doing here, certainly, while she's absolutely been outfoxed by Tony in this divorce situation, and while she's absolutely still trapped, there's a certain admirable quality to the idea of, okay, she's assessing her situation. Worst case scenario, and a very likely scenario, he ends up dead or in prison, or we split up down the road. This time, I'm setting up something for me.
Yes.
And that's what the spec house is about.
She's fortifying.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's smart. That's the best, given how awful the situation is, that's the best way forward for her.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, Adriana has none of that guile, right? So it is nice to see the contrast. That was it.
Right. Adriana has none of that guile and is unlucky as well. She lets a guy use her photocopier and gets fucked over. Whereas Carmela pushed into this dynamic over time and circumstance and some personal choices, as Lily points out, finds these ways to operate. Not only smart in what she's asking for, but we'll get to this later, I think very smart in the way that she asks for it at that lunch. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Some great acting in this scene. I like that Tony's like, I'm just saying what he admits he knows what he did was wrong, though he's full of shit. He's saying what he needs to say. The test stream kind of guided him in this direction. I am what I am. I didn't marry a cartoon. How good is this moment? Very brief. When Tony says, you had your own indiscretions yourself, and Carmela just freezes and looks and waits for him to say the next thing. Furio. And then she has the deniability, but there was a brief moment you see in her eyes. Did he hear about Wegler? What is he? Very good.
She saved his life by not speaking first.
Yes, exactly. Very smart. Carmela's very smart, despite the fact that Tony won this round. She's set to win the war. I think it's very cool. That stuff will never happen again. Then we go to Phil Leotardo, and we see a little bit flashes. It's hazy, kind of dipping into his memory of the event where his brother Bill was killed by Tony B. We don't get a ton of this. It doesn't play out in full narrative fashion, but we certainly get enough. And again, Tony B walking up, no fucking qualm, just boom, 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 just shooting at both of them.
He really is a nasty fuck, by the way.
Tony B?
Yeah, I'm not saying these guys didn't have it coming, but he really will just shoot you in the face.
Does not give a fuck.
Yeah. True. That's Tony B's defining quality, is there is a very low-key darkness underneath the Jackie Gleason and the massage shit, as Tony puts it. There's a very dark place in Tony B that we get glimpses of. It makes him fascinating, but it's also his undoing.
Yeah, I thought about it a lot. It's actually most similar to Tony S. That's the same thing, right? He's very charismatic and likable, and you never suspect him of that. And then when he has to kill somebody, it's just like, just flips the switch and does it.
But one went away and one didn't.
Yes.
Well,
but I think they have that in common.
The only difference is I don't think Tony S can surprise you because of his temper, whereas
you mean because he'll get angry first?
Yeah, it's pretty predictable what will set him off. He has his moments where it'll be random because something else happened, but Tony Soprano has a temper, and so you kind of know how to be around him. If Tony B is as charming and wonderful and smart as he is, he doesn't show the darkness almost ever, which makes him scarier to me than Tony Soprano.
Mr. Kim never saw that coming.
Oh, no.
No, for sure not.
Yeah.
I can't believe Mr. Kim
Scary
lived.
in a different way, I should say.
Yeah.
These images that come to Phil about his brother being killed are similar to the images that come to Tony later about Tony B and hanging out with him on Uncle Pat's farm. There's a sentiment there that's a big issue with Tony the two Tonys, guilt, shame, the sentiment of their years of friendship, and it has to be complicated to make it worse for our Tony S, that part of what undoes Tony B is his own sense of duty and friendship. It wasn't like I fucked this guy over or did something wrong in terms of like robbing somebody. It was personal.
Yeah.
It was like they killed my buddy. I think that makes it even more painful.
Well said. We are introduced to the Carmine Brain Trust once again, and Carmine is having second thoughts. It's gotten way out of hand. Phil's a captain. We now have upper management getting killed over this. This isn't some girl you used to fuck. This isn't, Johnny Sack's lackey.
Yeah, right, yeah.
This is now seriously, he's in the war. And again, I hate to keep going back to this, but we've established at several points that there's some parallel between what was going on at the time with Iraq and George W. and this whole situation in the show. It's not a direct one-to-one, but you have to wonder if there was a moment where George W. thought to himself shortly after the war began, we're in a fucking stagmire.
Yeah, my phone didn't even let me type Stagmire.
Yeah.
What a line. Again, a perfect malaprop. Delivered so sincerely, staring at that fire. We're in a stagmire. That's great. Frankie Valli, the power behind the Carmine Trust. All due respect, Carmine, that's why you got to get out there. That's not how I want to handle it. And Carmine and Rusty looks back, realizing at this point, perhaps wisely, that he's on the losing side of this battle.
Yeah.
And Carmine is rethinking this. Perhaps Carmine is stupid, but not unwise. We'll see. We're at the Crazy Horse in the back. That blue-eyed prick fucked me over. Everyone's gathering here. They're dressed up nice. We find out they're heading into New York to meet with Johnny. Chris comes in, gives this is almost as meta as the test stream. Gives a Bruce Springsteen lyric with Stevie Van Zandt as Silvio sitting right there, who plays in the E Street Band. Highways Jam with Broken Heroes on a Last Chance Power Drive. Oh, so now you're getting cute with me.
The track that's from is called Born to Run.
Well, we should talk more about that lyric a little later in the episode, too.
Tony B, still on the milk carton. Great line. Silvio is just cranking him out here. My smelly Valentine. That's hilarious.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Christopher.
Mean.
It's mean. I think she has bigger problems coming up very soon, but got to replace her colon with a semicolon.
That was funny.
If Chris could channel this humor into his writing, he might be able to do something.
They could write those memoirs finally.
She's got the whole world at her feet. She walks around like impending doom. It's
Yep.
another AA thing.
Speaking of memoirs, how old do we think those two characters are again? Christopher and Adriana? I'm assuming they're not the same age as the actors.
It's never exactly set out.
Are they mid-20s, late 20s?
To me...
They're not 30.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
To me, they read early 30.
You think that late?
Absolutely, the early 30s.
Yeah,
You think so?
to me they read early 30s.
Okay. That's actually their real age, I think.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny...
That's how they look to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. In actuality, Michael Imperioli is only, I think, 4 to 6 years younger than Gandolfini. But he looks younger.
Right. If we are to believe... I know I shouldn't bring it up. If we are to believe Many Saints of Newark timeline, Tony is somewhere between 16 and 18 years older than Chris.
Do not get me started on that movie.
But
age
I
stuff,
think,
it makes no sense.
But yes, I was just about to say, I think that movie played with the ages of the
Yeah,
characters, because
it's
otherwise it wouldn't make
stupid
sense.
as shit. Yeah.
I'm gonna do what I do with my wife a lot of the time with that movie and just pretend it doesn't exist.
All right, I'm sorry I brought it up.
Hi, Lily.
Hello, dear.
We get so much shit from you people. I'm talking to you listeners, by the way, for not having Lily on more.
Well, here she is.
Here she is. Listen, I'd have her on every episode. You don't know me. I'd have her on every time. Tell them how busy you are. Tell them. Tell the people out of your own mouth.
I'm busy.
She's busy, folks. But here she is, so we're gonna enjoy her. room full of guys making fun of my wife. All right.
It's just you.
I'm a room full of guy. Leave me alone.
That's the plurable.
Silvio suggests veganism. I don't know that I knew much about veganism before 2004. When did that start taking off? I don't know.
I think before that.
Yeah, was it? Tony corners Adriana. People got their health. They take it for granted. My wife and I are getting back together. Of course, has to evoke not the first time we're going to... I was joking about Mr. Ruggiero's Neighborhood earlier, but this episode is a direct sequel to Irregular Around the Margins. I mean,
Yes.
this
Right.
follows a very clear trajectory, and they're deliberately evoking the imagery, the place where that line was almost crossed. Tony telling her, hey, getting back together, we'll have you over the house. Put that behind us. They get to New York, and Phil is... This to me is... We've had some fun dealings with Phil so far, but this is Phil Leotardo. We're finally really introduced to this character here. His bitterness, his mentality. They come in, sorry for your loss, we all are. Take your sorries and stick them in your ass. Frank Vincent just absolutely killing it with the cane. You ever have someone die in your arms, you cocksucker? A family member, somebody you love? Give it time. See if I can't make that happen for you. Very ominous words. Silvio with the whoa, whoa, whoa. Is that necessary? Johnny finally steps in and tells Phil, he's right. Fuck him, John. Fuck all of them. Walks out. And then Tony and Johnny have to hash this out. And Johnny is not the colloquial, friendly, ally, pragmatic problem solver that we have been led to know of him or expect from him. He tells Tony as respectfully and bluntly as possible that you either deliver that prick being Tony B, to my door, or I will rain a shitstorm down on you and your family like you have never fucking seen. We're done here.
And we are, yeah. More shitstorm talk. Johnny's in the catbird seat. He's not negotiating because he doesn't have to. Mm-hmm. Tony and Silvio and Chris came in. I'm not sure exactly what they were expecting.
Yeah.
If they were expecting any wiggle room at all. That got dashed right away.
Even Johnny gave Chris a veiled threat. Fine, one of your other relatives then.
Yeah.
Oof.
And Johnny is typically more cautious. Again, if he's not being cautious, it seems as though, it doesn't have to be. You guys didn't understand. You guys are misunderstanding this, right? Like, you came in thinking we're negotiating. The negotiation is you give this guy up or else, in effect. Take as a parallel how later Carmela knows exactly what and how she is negotiating with Tony at Vesuvio at lunch and how much better that scene goes. So, yeah, and again, another pretty short scene really gets the point across.
Great scene, though. This is the kind of, for those who like the really juicy gangster stuff, this is what you're waiting for. This stuff, I love scenes like this. I love any of these meetings generally in this bar in New York with the New York family. These scenes are always great.
I agree. At first, I really was like, wow, John, what a prick. But then I was like, well, we have built directly on the Joey Peeps thing that he's still not over, right? So he basically needs to count this as a victory just to save face on both.
Right.
Right? He can't have Tony have his way on both these things,
Yes.
right? Of just kind of sort of getting away with Joey Peeps and now also Bill Leotardo.
And we're also not officially out of the Little Carmine thing. The worst thing Johnny can do is lose Phil to Little Carmine. The Leotardo brothers we were led to believe, like, the muscle behind Johnny's operation.
Right.
So if he doesn't back up Phil 100% on this, Phil can go to Little Carmine, Phil can stage a coup. Who the fuck knows what Phil's capable of? So it sucks because we like...
This is the last moment that Johnny's position is vulnerable.
Right.
Yeah.
It sucks because we like Johnny Sack, right? We've been following...
We do. But it's been a different Johnny Sack until this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
He has to take this position.
Yeah, the point of view is just, like, if this were the Sacks, like, Johnny is totally in the right here,
Yes.
right? Like, he's doing absolutely the right thing. We just are Team Jersey.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, Sopranos are just wrong, or Jersey's just wrong, and New York is right here, but...
Yeah. Oh, of course.
You know?
Yeah, and we're not quite used to... We're used to Tony being politic with New York, or making that attempt. We're not used to New York being this straight-up antagonistic, and they're not ready for it.
Yeah. Well said. Speaking of good writing, this next scene is, I want to give credit to the writers. If I were a 12-year-old out for Sea Scouts and my instructor referred to something as a knob whelk, I would also say that's what I call my dick. That was the exact joke I would make, probably even as an adult. So, good writing there. And then they stumble on the dead body. As of now, this is a mystery. What is this? We're getting
shit!
Yeah, we're getting all these little pieces of something going on
Really fast.
But this is a quick
moment,
touchdown and a great scene, very effective. They made the body really grotesque, so you really remember it. Like, what is this? Artie Bucco schmoozing, Grandma pretty soon, Grandpa. Hey. This is the scene that Tony wanted the first time they met at Vesuvio, right? This is the whole butter wouldn't melt in your mouth spiel was not how Tony saw it going down, but this is more, what you said to me really hit home with with your feelings and all. And he very much misreads. You want another kid? No. Carmela's like very quick on that. Oh, no. But she lays it out, the business. She wants a down payment on a spec house. She wants to go in it with her dad.
I can't say enough that I think I laughed, but it was not because I thought it was funny. I just thought, like, what is the price of your soul? You have an exact number, and it's a number you think he'll agree to without much of a, 600,000. Okay.
Yep.
That's it. That's the number.
Yep.
It's purely business.
Yep. And then I'll move back in. AJ refers to the situation in the next scene as fucking weird, but the fucking weird is already in full crank. What is amazing about this next moment is he says, I'll move back in. What about those other issues? I promise that my midlife crisis problems will no longer intrude on you anymore.
The wording is very careful there.
Right.
He does not say that I'm going to stop fucking other women.
No, it will no longer
Basically, he
intrude.
says, I'll be much better about hiding it.
Yeah.
Right? No more acrylic nails on the nightstand is basically what he means.
And
To be fair, that's all she asked for.
well, and
That
that's
is
what I was,
true.
that's my
That is true.
This
You
is
can't
also
be faithful, be discreet.
right. This is my interpretation of the acting. This is up for debate because it's not spelled out explicitly, but Carmela understands those terms. I don't think she's under the impression Tony is saying I won't fuck other women. It's that you have your thing, I have my thing, and never the twain shall meet.
Yeah.
Correct.
Stay away from the spec house, keep the women out of my face, and on we go, this thing of ours.
Yep. The business fashion in which her language approaches it allows Tony to speak of it in these very indirect terms. So it's very interesting that they're saying it but not saying it.
Right.
And yeah, I think she played it beautifully. As Jordan said, she knows this figure and she didn't fumble on it. She didn't look at him needily when she said it. All those things would have been things Tony could pounce on. She gives the number. Tony looks at her for a second. She's eyeing the food. She's continuing talking. Cool as a cucumber. Great negotiation, Carmela. You nailed it.
Yeah, a moment I found similar to this was way back in 4, Janice. Tony's trying to get some information about Ralph Cifaretto and his sexual activities, his proclivities. And Janice asks him for $3,000. And, I think in the dialogue, it's, how'd you come by that number? I thought you'd say yes.
Yeah.
And that's the $600,000, right?
Yep.
She's weighing the situation here. And in a similar way, right? He's a wealthy man. How much can I get out of him regarding this situation? She's right. They're both right.
Can I offer something? Because I think that it may help not help, but enlighten our conversation later too. Is there a world where Carmela continues to pursue the divorce and ends up with nothing and has to get a job and, actually make her way? Does she actually ever get out though? Like, will Tony will always bother her. They have their kids. Can she get out if she really worked at it?
Good question. He's always in her life because of the kids, right?
I think so.
Well, it depends on what you mean by out. I don't think
Would
Tony...
he ever stop bugging her?
I don't think Tony would ever kill her. I don't think he I think he would always take her back. But I also think that there is an alternate universe where she proceeds to divorce, ends up living in a 1-bedroom condo somewhere for a little while she works on a real estate career, and that's a slow grind, and she meets some yuppie guy or something. I think it's possible.
Okay.
I don't think Tony would ever harm her.
That wasn't where I was going.
No, but I mean...
More like mess with her.
Well, mess with it. That's.
Like, can she get out of the life? Is there a road for her?
No, I don't think so. In Boardwalk Empire, which is kind of the spiritual successor to this show, Margaret leaves Nucky and pursues a career of her own, and then the show skips forward a number of years, and you find out the entire time that she pursued an individual career, she was still in Nucky's sphere of influence. She just didn't realize it. I think Tony would set up something similar, where it's just like, he allows an illusion to persist that she's out making her own connections, having her own business interests, something, whatever, but then would find out at the end that actually he's the primary investor or something. Because I don't think he would let her go even if she thought that's what she was doing. Maybe, in other words, she could break away from him, but he can't her. So I think he expands his influence to still be a part of her no matter what.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I bring this up because there are people I've spoken to about the show who would condemn people like Carmela and Adriana. And I can't get over the idea that, like, you made a decision in your early 20s to be with this person. And at what point do you just say, like, I see the writing on the wall. There is no actually getting out. I might as well get what I can out of this relationship and this life, right? Like, to me, that's my interpretation of her getting back with him, is just, there's no actual way out, so I might as well just do my thing. Please don't, get acrylic nails on my pillow again.
Yeah. Is it, Macbeth or Hamlet? I don't remember. I'm already steeped in blood so far that I might as well just keep going rather than turn back the way it is Macbeth.
Yeah.
She's already halfway in just keep going. I'm already just get what you can while you're already in the mess.
I mean, none of these characters are like morally impressive to me.
Yeah,
like it's all a question of compromise. But yeah, I mean, I feel for all of them in a way. But yeah, I mean, like the way that step by step Carmela's been brought to this place. I mean, it makes sense to me, and maximizing what's good. Even later in this episode, when we were reminded that Tony and Carmela in good moments have, among other things, a sexual connection.
Right.
They still like each other and all that stuff. It's like, so I think I get it, but it's a tough episode in that regard too, because particularly at the end, I'm wrestling with. I think when they're looking at that land out in the woods, Carmela says the price was good, and I'm like, that was the price. What's the cost?
Yep. Next scene is Chris and Adriana showing up at the restaurant. Tony pulls Chris into the gentleman's room. And I want to note that Chris has a glass of wine. He was drinking a beer in the last scene.
He's drinking heavier and heavier as the scenes go on.
He's drinking every scene he's in until the shit really hits the fan.
Yeah.
So there's your wagon over there. You're off of it. The cigarette operation, there's been a screw-up. Some bodega in Newark's been selling cigarettes without the tax stamps. They argue about it. It ends up with Tony not knowing what to do about Tony B. When Chris asks, and Tony drops the bomb that Paulie supervises the cigarette run, you're splitting everything. Chris is very upset by that news. I got a wedding to pay for, and Tony says, if I were you, I'd cut out the open bar. Yikes. Ouch. That's a low blow. And climbs out of the bathroom. Chris throws the wine. We replace the glass of wine for a full bottle of vodka. Fuck family, fuck loyalty, cost you a dime, you're a fucking pariah. I love Chris acting in this scene. I think he's really just going for it. This is like years of frustration. I bet Aids heard similar rants to this before, but it feels like it's ramping up. And Chris is definitely drunk. She says, this is going to come back again and again and again in her last hour on this show. You're a better man than he is, a better person, no judge of character. Tony B could get us all killed with New York, and he needs to think about what to do with him. Well, maybe I need to think. You ever thought of that, you fat fucking scumbag? He starts talking. I could take him out in a second, too. That fat fuck. Bang. His kids wouldn't even give a shit. And then he plops down at the end of this release. Chris should be in therapy, but he ran out of the room the first time it was ever brought up to him. And he says, that's the guy, Adriana. That's the guy I'm going to hell for. My Uncle Tony. The guy I'm going to hell for. Great scene. Great little lead up to what's coming. Back to the FBI headquarters. They're watching as the Long Branch detectives go into the Crazy Horse. Okay. Call Long Branch. What's happening here? They're no longer like, ooh, this is weird. It's like something's going on. What's happening? Call them up. So this is all building. Tony visits Valentina.
Yeah, nice little touchdown here.
Short hair, like that actress. Great, yeah, that actress. Yeah, he basically pulls up the chair. So obviously the medical bills are paid for, and she knows where this is going. You motherfucker! Am I so horrible now? He says, there was no future with us. That's why I didn't want you hitching your wagon to my star.
What a fucking horrible way to phrase it. Like, you couldn't come up with anything better.
Another of Tony's exes threatening to kill herself. His phone rings. I came here to...
He hasn't... He hasn't become softer over time with that. Like, the first girlfriend tried to kill herself, like, season 2, and he was really feeling it for her. Here she says, I'm gonna fucking kill myself. And Tony says, I gotta take this. Just, like, picks up the phone. He's at it.
I came here to pick you up and end it like a gentleman. She's sobbing. But this is one of those unfortunate things. To be entirely fair to Tony, when he doesn't often deserve it, he was going to break up with her before this happened. Just what a terrible...
Right, but now it seems so much worse.
But, yep, I think we're done with Valentina. Nice run, thank you.
Until the next one.
Tony B is calling. Is that you? Just say something. I know you're there. Hangs up. Tony, as a matter of moving the plot forward and trying to figure out where Tony is, calls up Syl, who is fucking... Anything Syl is doing at any given time, the business he's given is so fucking funny.
So great, right?
Yeah. He's like cleaning something off of his shirt with his jacket with a toothbrush. Bing! And that angle they have him at, they really know how to shoot Silvio. They really do.
Like the most natural thing in the world, just him cleaning himself. Oh, Gerard, yeah, I'll get him. I was like, this is fucking great.
Right? Yeah, but I appreciate that. They're always giving Syl some funny business. He's always working on something, doing something. It's good. But yeah, they're going to tap the phone so that Tony can get a trap on the line. And the feds swoop in. They scoop up aid. Here we go. I was just picking up my medicine. And Tony comes home. Gifts Carmela. It's weird to see him back here. Gives her a Hermes. How do you say that correctly, Lily?
Hermes.
Oh, it's Hermes. Excuse me.
It's a very expensive scarf.
Mm-hmm. Very expensive scarf. They sit down. It's fucking weird. This is a fun little scene. It does, after so long of them being separate, it does feel very jarring and sudden to see them all together like this. Tony breaks open the champagne. The people I love, nothing else matters. AJ basically slams it down like a shot. Tony tells him to savor it. It's important in life. And before long, he's in front of the History Channel or watching a movie on the couch with ice cream.
Amazing how quickly that goes back to normal.
Yep. He's wanted it so bad.
I think it might be a W.C. Fields
yes,
movie.
Yes, it is. That's right.
Those polls, those polls go back to the first season, right? Him watching the W.C. Fields old movies, yeah.
Yep. And Carmela's giving a look at him, sort of like, well, we're back. Back to your regularly scheduled programming as she's loading the dishwasher.
And it's kind of amazing. Yeah. It's kind of amazing that after everything, you just go right back to it. And I think that's very relatable.
Yeah, it's very realistic in a weird way. There is a weirdness in the air that's going to take time for them to get through, but like, there he is.
It's a very human moment. I as extraordinary as these characters are, and as volatile as the marriage can be between Tony and Carmela, I think they like all of us, they strive to recapture familiar rhythms always. right? And we do have that resonant moment with Carmela where she's listening to the W.C. Fields and sees he's eating dessert, and we see that moment on her face like, oh, it's like he never left. And that's kind of weirdly what we, the viewer, want to, in a way. It's a weird, satisfying scratch on an itch. It really is. Because we see, maybe it would be better if these two were apart, right? But weirdly, we're satisfied that they're back together. It's so bizarre.
Mm.
You know, I don't even know what a good word would be to describe that, where I realize, like, moralistically, right, on a good-evil scale, on, like, a what's best for you personally scale, I'm like, yeah, they shouldn't be apart, they should be rehabilitated, she should be off doing her own thing, but, like, kind of watching them like, oh, good, they're back, everything's back, great. As it was.
Yep.
Well, their time apart wasn't fun for us either. Those are rough episodes.
Yeah.
And so we kind of feel it with them.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they can't really be apart, they might as well be together, and that muscle memory is strong.
Yeah.
As is Tony bringing a gift. Which Carmela says will go with a black coat, which could portend death. So... strap in, folks.
Good catch. I didn't catch that at all.
I also had no idea how to pronounce it. To me, it might as well have been
Hermes?
Hermes.
Like the real Louis Vuitton.
Then this next scene, I don't need to hash out the story beat for beat, but this is the big interrogation scene. We all saw it unfold. It's largely just a retelling, just a telling of the events in sequence after the feds. All things considered, I don't like the Fed characters. I'm not rooting for the Fed characters, but their approach was on point as far as getting to the objective that they're getting to here. This felt real to me as the son of a cop. This idea of like, do you really think we have you here because we don't know what's in the bag? This is something cops love to do, whether they know what's in the bag or not. They happen to know. But whether they know what's in the bag or not, you make the criminal confess. My father told me about this is just a personal story about my dad in the police force, but there was a guy who the cops knew had been raping women, and they kept bringing him in, but they just never had enough proof to get an arrest on him. Kept bringing him in. He was a master through the interrogation. And then one day, my dad's partner was like, so before we start this interview, you should know that there's this one amazing new technology that lets us lift fingerprints off of human skin. Is there anything you'd like to tell us? And he confessed. By the way, that technology I don't think is still in existence. So it was just total bull. At least at the time they didn't have it. Total bullshit. So the cops, the way their approach here was very...
Overrepresent your hand.
Yeah,
right?
It was very believable. We know the story. You just have to fill in the gaps for us. That kind of thing. It felt very real to me the way they approached it. And she gives up this whole story about this guy Matouche, the drug dealer, who we were introduced to briefly back in season 3. He was selling X, got beat up by Furio. It's that same guy Matouche, got his jaw broken. Jackie Jr. fucked him over. And he stabs a guy to death in the back because he ripped him off, sold him baby powder.
This flashback should not work.
No.
It really shouldn't. I don't think, but it's great.
Yeah.
It really works.
I was fine with it.
And it's more... This really feels deliberate. It's more like men using essentially Adriana's universe as like a parking spot.
Yeah.
And it ends up fucking her over.
Yeah.
That's it's almost always her trusting the wrong people.
Always.
Whereas the feds seem to, make it about her being criminally complicit, but that's a joke in this scenario. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
And the feds act like gangsters do. In this episode, they have leverage on somebody and they use it. That's what Tony would do with Vin Makazian or Dr. Freed. Use it to your advantage. To what end, I guess I still don't get because of their weird... They feel like a Kafka-esque bureaucratic nightmare come to life.
Yeah.
If part of their goal was to actually get Adriana wired up to talk to Tony about what, no idea.
Yes, that is confusing to me too.
But that's okay. Fuck them anyway. The gangsters kill Adriana. The feds got her killed for reasons that I still don't understand.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what is like the golden egg they're hoping to get.
Well, Cubitoso does say, I want you wired up. We haven't gotten quite to this point yet, but he says, I want you wired up. I want Tony Soprano and your boyfriend too. He wants Chris wired up. The pitch here is you're bringing Chris into the loop.
But they could have gotten Chris. You know what I mean? I understand narratively why it's Adriana. The tactics they use to squeeze her, I just don't know, like, how they get what they want from her. What is Tony gonna say to her? Right? She's what to him? You know, they're not gonna get anything they want from her. And in the interrogation scene, I realized it is a very realistic scene. You know, she doesn't lie once in this entire scene. She is very forthcoming with the truth. Their response to her tearful confessions of everything is to just yell at her more. I was confused as to what their aim was. It actually just seemed at one point that they were just being cruel to her, and the cruelty was sort of the point.
When she decided she wasn't going to wear a wire, they were just... Maybe Christopher knows a good lawyer. That kind of thing.
Right. Well, then fuck them for that. But, like, again, it's like, what do you want from this woman? You know? Yes, of course I'm sympathetic to her, but I really don't get it. What are you going to get any of them to say? For the most part, even Christopher doesn't discuss business with her.
I've given this a fair amount of thought because the FBI on this show really does... It fascinates me.
And it fascinates our audience, too, because do they let us know how they feel about it.
Yeah, I've never seen really law enforcement depicted like this. I know what people think of overbroad laudatory stories about cops, derisively call it copaganda. Okay. And there's more gray depictions of cops where you see the good and bad. Famously, probably the best in that respect is The Shield, and of course shows like The Wire. And there's stuff like the Keystone Cops where law enforcement is goofy but lovable. These are the Keystone Cops without the charm. They're not good at this. They don't seem especially clever. There's no mission. The best that I can come up with in terms of trying to make sense of how they're going about this Adriana thing is like in The Wire what would be a StatCom mentality. Like you're getting a certain amount of budget, money, manpower, equipment, and support, so you got to show results by saying this is what we're doing every month. So we have this asset and we're working them. We got X leverage on them and they were reluctant to cooperate, so we put pressure on them. That's what we report, so keep sending us the federal money and this machine can keep on humming. That's the best I can come up with, because unless there's like a brilliant scheme to get Adriana into the inner circle, they got nothing.
Yeah.
And now they got less than nothing. They're really fucked.
The best informant they have in terms of positioning is Ray Curto, but Ray is cunning enough to kind of play their game along with them and just continually give them stupid shit forever. So he's kind of playing them in a way. She's not clever enough to do that. She gives them everything she has, but she still has nothing. At some point they have to realize that, but then I think what Paul said is true. I think you keep her in the loop, you keep her shackled because you have to. Because you have to have informants, because you have to justify your budget, even if they're not giving you anything. I guess that's part of it, too.
Yeah. Well, those are all fair points. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, let's think about our viewers who have complained about us in the FBI. And so, like, let's call a spade a spade. She obstructed evidence, right? Or whatever they're called. She has broken the law.
Yeah.
We acknowledge that.
Yeah.
She knew she was breaking the law. She knew that was a problem. Now, we could have an argument about how is she raised? You're raised to cover that stuff up, of course, right? She still broke the law. She did something wrong. She somewhere knew that was a wrong thing to do, but you don't call cops either. So
let's say this, and I feel pretty confident saying this. Had she gone immediately to the cops with this, had she left the Crazy Horse that night and immediately went there, she's in the same fucking position. They would try, even though she had done the right thing, they would try to leverage that and scare her with it to get the same result.
Right.
Yeah, there's no winning here.
Right.
Yeah.
I just felt that was worth
I agree.
100%.
because
She's
we're
done
going to
wrong.
get the angry letters.
She's done wrong. She's done wrong.
But even if you believe
By
that...
angry, we mean, fun and engaging.
But even if you think this is a worthwhile use of the FBI's time, resources, and manpower, And even if you believe that this was a smart way to go about dismantling the North Jersey mob, I still have to feel bad for her, especially in the moment when she's talking about this guy Matouche, and you can see them all looking at each other in post 9/11 America. She's describing this very religious guy from, quote, somewhere in the Middle East, Pakistan, sending money to his brother who runs a prep school for young boys, and they're all looking at each other like, what the fuck? And she just is like, I was very inspired by that. Like, she has no fucking judge of who in this world is good or bad, or it's just not something she has in it. She just doesn't have that in her, and that's her true sin. Not dealing cocaine with Chris.
I kind of like Agent Harris.
He's the only redeemable.
He has emerged to me as someone who doesn't know the later seasons super well as a real person who's on the FBI. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They kind of make them all just kind of horrible people, but he has like intelligence and compassion on his face, and the actor doesn't have a ton of lines. So it really is just his face you're looking at, and you're like, okay, there's someone who kind of has some sense of this. I don't know.
Well, he's the one that talks to The Sopranos. He's the one who talks to them.
He'll go to
Satriale's,
Satriale's
and he gets sandwiches. So, like, he has a relationship with them. Is it a normal or anything? Yeah, but they have a relationship.
Yeah.
He knows this is gonna hurt.
Right.
You're looking down the barrel at 25 years. I want Tony Soprano on tape. I want you wired up. Your boyfriend, too. I'm not doing it. Then you're out of options. Frank Cubitoso really losing it here, screaming at her. She refuses. I want to talk to my lawyer. I don't have one. Maybe Christopher knows a good lawyer. That's a real shithead thing to say. That's it. We cut to a very relaxing domestic scene where Carmela's going through Tony's stuff, and we're making jokes about her weak wrist and how Tony can help her strengthen that up, and they're kissing, and again, a home is being made while another is being unmade. Chris continues the pattern, drinking in every scene, pulling the vodka out of the freezer, calling her. It's, where you been?
10 seconds long.
Yeah.
Yep.
8 hours, establishing that she's been there at least overnight at this point. The scene in the bathroom, San Severino softens up a little bit. This is another tactic the cops do. They'll be really hard on you 1 minute, then it's like, look, I'm trying to help you. You got your whole life ahead of you. Living like this is what's costing you your insides. You still have your health. This is the second time her, health, the idea of health has been thrown at her.
Says that she left 4 messages with the public defender. I don't know that that's true. I can't imagine the missing scenes in which they actually call the same public defender 4 times.
Yeah.
I imagine they left a message.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
so
I
don't think they're trying super hard to get her a lawyer.
Yeah, they're backed up. Sip coffee. This is another thing they do. They hold you as long as they're legally allowed to without pressing charges.
I think some of the time crunches they just made up.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, they're making quite a lot of this up. We'll find out later that
the murder's a murder.
Cubitosa can take over the Long Branch PD's operations anytime he wants. He simply chooses not to.
Yeah, it's all arbitrary. They're trying to put as much pressure on her as possible. Murder doesn't have a statute of limitations. They could let her go and pull her in 10 fucking years from now on this thing if they really wanted to prosecute an assisted murder. But they're trying to pressure her. They go out for a cigarette. You get a feeling that she's trying to go a more soft route with Adriana after she's locked herself in the bathroom. Tony's smoking a cigar, reflecting back on Tony B. Then San Severino comes into the office with Harris and Cubitoso and says she thinks she can get Christopher problems with Tony. He hates him, apparently. And Harris says CI-12 confirmed it. I wrote, who is CI-12? It's got to be Ray, right? It's got to be Ray Curto. This guy's been just low-key snitching for years. Loves it.
But never anything significant. Just always the bullshit.
Right, yeah.
Right. And then submits his receipts.
Yep. Says that, I was thinking immunity and relocation for the two of them. He has an interest in screenwriting. Frank with the help, I'll put a call into Sam Goldwyn.
But that's real. I think he's really, yeah.
You think he's going to actually...
I think so.
Oh, I heard that earnestly, too.
I heard that earnestly.
I guess he could if he wanted to. But she has until 9 a.m. Monday, and because she's not wearing a wire, they can't keep her surveilled or offer protection. We get a call. Johnny won. He's the boss. Jimmy Petriel gives a call. Tony, that tennis match between those guys, my guy won, and nobody got hurt. Carmine they must have worked something out. Some people are better at being number twos. I love Paulie's reaction. It was all friendly with John throughout all of season 4. Talking about little Carmine. He's a fucking pussy. I knew he's a fucking pussy, that kid. But, they're looking down the barrel. I like Tony's line about times it would have been great to have John as boss. Now, it's a different world, different Johnny. And then we get the bomb scene here. This is the scene that's been building for
The scene.
Yeah, years. This is, I think, obviously the whole performance, but this is, to me, is the scene and the scene that follow. This few scenes that follow that won them the Emmys here. She starts breaking the news. That fucking Bobby DeMarco. No, Christopher, listen, I gotta get through this. She tells him everything. Danielle, FBI agent. He sits down in that chair. This fascinating shot we get where she's just rambling nervously off camera, and we're pushing in on Chris, and we're seeing him process this, and his brain is just completely short-circuiting. Michael Imperioli just crushes this moment.
You could see like lights firing behind his eyes.
Yeah.
Like it's a really good close-up.
Yeah. He has technically, I think, been more violent to her, but this is... You're watching this the first time.
He almost kills her now.
Right, yeah. He punches her square in the head.
He's maybe hurt her longer.
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, she's close to her
I mean,
eyes are bulging.
yeah, we're 2 seconds away from she's dead.
Yeah.
And it's intense. It's tough to watch. He's hurting, but he's feeling betrayed. He's yelling, "How could you do this to us? I loved you." Then at the absolute last possible second, right when another few moments of squeezing would have put her lights out, he backs off, crumples next to her, and the two of them just crumple and sob in a heap together. Chris shouts, "What are we going to do?" And now they're both in it. Now they're both in this absolutely dreadful situation. We leave this on a very tense note, not knowing how it's going to resolve, to get to the Tony B thing, which, as you said, is fascinating because this shit's all very good and very important, but it's also the C plot of the episode. You got to be wondering in the back of your head where all the Chris and Adriana stuff's going, but we also want to hear what's happening with Tony B. He calls. He finally actually speaks with Tony. Talks about leaving you with a real pile of shit in your lap. Look after my boys. I like Tony, sure. Anything else I can do for you? And then Tony responds in part to, in a way, this is a revenge, but also sort of a leveling of the playing field. And he is finally in a situation where he doesn't feel bad about giving Tony B the truth of what happened. And it's interesting. He confesses, and as bad a spot as Tony is in, you can see Tony B's whole essence just sink when Tony breaks this news to him.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're even.
I thought it was a little of the anyway we're even and a little of the this may be the last time we speak.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
This might be the only chance I have to tell you this.
Yeah, the table's been cleared.
Right.
And our business is settled. Don't come around here. Take care of yourself. And that's it. As far as I think both of them are concerned, might be the last time they do ever speak. I think that's right on the money. And as soon as they hang up, Tony is calling Gerard. Roy's Kinderhook. I know where it is. In case Kinderhook doesn't ring a bell with the audience, he immediately calls Uncle Pat. Confirms. It's good to see Uncle Pat. I like this actor. I wish we got a few more minutes with him, but it's a packed episode. There's been a problem at the farm. They can't sell it. Some environmental permit that didn't go through, so it's just house is just sitting there empty. There's Tony B.
Which is great, because that could effectively tie up that loose end.
Mm-hmm.
If Tony gave him up.
Yeah.
And we see how and why he doesn't in this episode, and that's going to lead us to the next one.
Yes.
So it's great that it leaves it dangling.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cut to this scene, which is monumental in the show for me because this is the last scene they have together, Chris and Adriana. This is the last scene. I wonder if they knew when they shot it that this is the last scene they were going to have. It's really sad, but they're talking about, again, they can't help but drop in the comedy, in my opinion, with the, you can write my memoirs finally. Like, look at a fireplace like you like. She's back in fantasy land. She still thinks that there's some way out of this. And I did too. You know, Chris was in the worst situation with Tony that he could be. She had the best chance she could have maybe had to get Chris to flip here.
I think you're exactly right.
Yeah.
That it was the best chance. It just wasn't a sell
Yeah.
at the end.
And he gets up to go leave. There's a lot to process. He's going to have to leave the life for good. Don't leave. You want... And she says this line, which is another ominous death symbol in this show. You want some eggs? Not on The Sopranos, you don't. No, don't smoke. Next, you're going to want a vodka. It's sweet. It's sad to see her look so desperate like that, but he calms her down. He's just going to go out, get some air. He'll be back soon.
Well, he says he's going to go out and get cigarettes.
Get cigarettes.
Right, which is like American male coded for I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
Right. I think he does, in that moment, think he is coming back.
Sure.
But we have to read it two ways.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because that is the legend of the American male.
Yeah.
There's that mid-20th century American male. I went out for cigarettes and never came home to my family. Right. That's part of it.
Yeah. And by the way, the mood at this point in the episode is just this sickly, like, oh, what is going to happen? It's you just don't. It could fall either way. It's very well shot, very well done. The way the tension is held in the air. Adriana calls San Severino. He wants to do it, but he needs time. That's not what we discussed. You have him serious, Adriana. You have him until 1 o'clock. If I push him, he won't want to do it. Okay. Hangs up. And we cut to this scene. This scene is so good in its simplicity and what they were able to get across in, again, Paul, 15 seconds of action. Chris is lovingly running his finger across his Hummer, which we know cost him $50,000. He lectured Tony B about it 2 episodes ago when he put his foot up on it. Loves this thing. Looking at it like, fuck, I guess this is done. And then he looks up at a family coming out of the gas station. And it's just, this is Joe America with his wife and his rambunctious kids and
His mullet.
Yeah. The mullet, he kind of looks like Chris. They found a guy who looks like an alternate, like, oh, maybe this could be, like, Chris saw his future self here.
With, like, something zapped out of him.
Yeah, there's no energy, there's no spirit,
pep.
There's no pep. He's getting in the car looking like he's dreading going wherever he's going with his family. It's a beat-up station wagon with a burlap bag on the top. It's just real broken down.
Perfectly contrasting the enormous, beautiful Hummer that Chris drives that he has alone to himself there, which he would not be able to afford had he not been in this lifestyle. Yeah.
And he sees his life there. He sees his future in that moment. He sees this is going to be me, but in somewhere I like a lot less than Jersey. And that's the last we see of him for a little bit.
Well, hey, let's go back to those Born to Run lyrics for a second, right? Okay? The highway's crowded. Please correct me if I'm paraphrasing. We don't want to get this wrong. The highway's crowded with broken heroes on a last chance power drive, right? Pretty famous lyrics. Born to Run's a very famous song. So we have the title track there. Okay, Born to Run. Born to Run meaning born to not stay in one place, right? Born to kind of keep moving. To be free, in other words, right? I think Chris sees staying with Adriana and starting a new life somewhere else, and he sees this poor sucker. Sucker's the word he would use, who's stuck to this family and this station wagon. He's not free anymore. But he is, Chris in this moment, is he a broken hero on a last chance power drive, right? Is this, in fact, his last chance power drive? I think it is. That's kind of a cute joke in the episode, and yes, because Stevie Van Zandt is there in the scene where he says it, but I think they kind of mean the line sort of unironically, right? Chris is a broken hero on a last chance power drive when he goes out for the cigarettes and does not come home in this. Not that in what he's doing is noble, but it's honest to himself in that he is, in this way, a runaway, right? He's going to run away from having a wife. He's going to run away from having a children. He's going to run away from his love because he's going to be free. He's going to be himself. It is enormously selfish, right? But it is true to him as the made man, as the guy who's going to live this life, right? And he sees the nobility in that. He understands that's what has to be done, but it's sad in the same way that lyric is oddly sad in a song that is otherwise pretty, if not happy, then upbeat. But that lyric has always bothered me because that is a little jarring in that song. And it's jarring here.
Fuck you. That's beautiful. Well said, Jordan. One set per episode. Jordan actually drops my jaw when we're doing this. It's fascinating.
Silly.
Then we get the call, and as we said earlier, Tony is an extraordinarily adept actor, as we find out. But I admit, watching this the first time, I'm in. I'm buying the story because the alternative is unthinkable until we see it unfold.
I bought it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, Chris tried to kill himself. That makes perfect sense. That's what he would do. Look what he was just looking at.
Yeah.
It's plausible even in the framework of Adriana's life just continuing to spit out into utter misery.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, your boyfriend didn't know what to do, so he took some pills.
Yeah.
And, like, passed out and might have died. Like, so, yeah, of course that's what happened.
Tony brings up he's been drinking, so he's fighting that heroin urge again. It's all plausible, especially since Chris could have killed her and couldn't bring himself to do it. So it's believable for a moment here in the mind of the audience that Chris would both not want to run and would both not want to go with Adriana out into the wild blue, but also wouldn't want to kill her either. So this is a way out.
Tony's also a master manipulator because he knocks Adriana off center in the same phone call with, hey, don't interrogate the suicide so much. Do you know of any reason that he would want to do this, right? Because then she has to scramble to cover up the FBI thing. She's not really thinking too much about his choice of words or his tone of voice, which are impeccable anyway.
Right.
Tony's a little, he's very good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, Syl's going to come pick you up. So she packs a bag, gets in the car, and we get this. What a great way to do this from a storytelling perspective.
It has to be so.
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, yes, the Syl thing, but I was also talking about just the shot of her.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
The shot of her driving down the highway, music's blasting, red, very visible and noticeable red suitcase in the seat next to her.
Yeah, of course.
Driving herself in her car that we know is her car down the highway, getting out, just going. And for a second, you also buy that too. That's a plausible. And then they cut,
which is what the gangsters will sell.
Right.
As what happened.
You cut to the car with Silvio, and the music is coming through the stereo, which is such a cool touch that it was being piped in through the audio feed, and then it becomes when we snap into reality, it becomes a practical sound effect. Yeah. Fucking love that choice. That's an absolutely stellar way to do that, and it's gut-wrenching, because this is when the more adept viewers are going to start piecing together what's happening. But yeah, it had to be, as we discussed earlier, it had to be Silvio.
It has to be. Well, because of all the guys he would trust to do this, Paulie's a hammer. You don't send the hammer. You send the scalpel, right? You have to do more finesse work here, right? It has to be somebody she will get into the car with, no problem. She'll be focused on everything else. He's avuncular. He's jolly, right? He can be smooth when he wants to be smooth. It's sad.
Yeah. Even to the point where he's giving her words of encouragement in the car ride. What are you crying? He's going to... Well, and this is also very sickly, ominous. He's going to be fine. As if to say, he'll be all right.
He's very resilient.
Yeah.
What he's going to have to get over.
Yeah, exactly. Dark words, dark scene. Here.
Can you imagine? The kind of person who can say that to her on the way to kill her. It's just...
Well, this is
you
Silvio.
said it.
This is Silvio the pimp.
Right.
Right, also.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's
right.
always what's under there.
Correct.
Remember when he shocked us all when he was beating up Tracy in season 3, and it was like, oh, that's who's under there.
Yeah, you never want to forget, and he's the guy who, on the way to kill her, says that. Mm-hmm. So, and somewhere's laughing, I'm sure, inside.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yep.
Because she's a rat.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be fine, strong kid, tough, resilient. keep him for a few days, observation tests, doing all the small talk. She's crying, looking off into the trees. We're shown the trees. I think we're meant to realize it a little bit before she does. When does she realize it? Does she truly not know until the moment he stops and gets out?
I think it makes it worse. Yeah. I don't think she realizes till the last moment. I think every viewer realizes it before her.
Her lapse of judgment about people around her carries her up until her very last moment.
I hate to say it, I don't think she knows until he like shuts the car.
Right.
like the very last moment, that long.
But it's rough. Let's talk real quick about the choice to do it off camera. Because I think on one hand it provides the character a dignity that she was not afforded in her life. But at the same time, it allowed for, I'm sure there were, not regret, but there had to have been moments after this where fans theorized that she survived because it was done off camera, or she ran away, or Silvio let her go, or some shit like that. There was always this conspiracy theory in the months and years after that she had survived.
Nah.
What are your thoughts on the choice to do it off camera? I like it for reasons we'll talk about when we get to the last scene, but
for me the simplest explanation seems to be right. It's David Chase doing us a kindness, right? We love her. We don't want to see her shot on camera, right? There's some things we don't need to see. Why do we need to see that? We know what happened. It's okay.
Yeah, it does provide that kind of dignity or protecting the audience from it. What's cruel about it, though, too, I think, is that, and we'll get this with the imagery at the end, paralleling it is that she's just meant to be forgotten. So we'll pan the camera away and it fizzles into the air.
Yep.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
You're right. It hurts.
Chris packs the same red bag we saw in her fantasy with a bag full of plausible stuff she would take on the road with her, throws it off into the Meadowlands. And then we find out why the episode is titled what it is. He drives to the parking lot at Newark Airport. This is long-term parking only. Repeating over and over the message. And that car is going to be there for a long, long, long time. Chris gets out. I love the long shot they do of just panning back on... it just makes you wonder, not just about, just really lets the tragedy of what just happened sink in, but it also gives you the sense of wonder about what other tragedies and mysteries are in many of the cars in this parking lot. It's a very compelling and interesting moment there. And that's it. That's it for Adriana. Any final thoughts on this sequence before we move on?
Oh, it's just very sad. I think you hope in vain that the scene will go another way, but it just grinds on. I mean,
Yep.
That's it. There's a horrible moment where after she's realized what's about to happen to her, Silvio turns into... You could either call it Monster Silvio, or you could call it the man who he really is, right? Where he I don't know, he drags her out of the car and she crawls away on her knees. It's especially nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Calls
her a cunt.
Calls her a cunt, right?
Her being on the hands and knees reminded me of Irregular Around the Margins.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the posture thing?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
On her knees.
Right. Okay.
It was really brutal.
Yeah, it's it just feels so inhuman, right? To be called that in your last moment and to crawl away on your hands and knees, right? Not even to run. Yeah, it's tough.
Yep. We get this scene between Tony and Johnny. They hug. They're right by, I think you were right, Jordan, it is the GW.
Maybe. I don't think I know my bridges well enough to know the shot.
I stayed quiet. I'm pretty sure it's the George Washington.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that would make sense to me just because I like it symbolically as being the bridge from Jersey to New York.
It's low-hanging fruit. That has to be it.
Yeah.
Johnny says, "This is the last time we'll meet like this. It's undignified."
Right, which I took to be, if that is the GW, a greater insult.
Right.
I'm not meeting you on the Jersey side of the GW bridge. Fuck you. You come to me now.
Yeah. I'm the boss of a 5 families family. You're going to come see me.
Right.
Exactly. Got the word on my cousin. I know where he is. And Tony For whatever led to this moment, he seems ready to give him up, but he just wants you. Listen, I know this has to be done, but let me handle it.
I want your word that it'll be quick.
Oh yeah, that's it. I want your word that it'll be quick. I'm not gonna lie. Phil's gonna do it. He's gonna do it his way. Tony reminds him, "You're the fucking boss, John. I want your promise. It'll be quick. You're the fucking boss, John. You can do whatever you want. I choose not to then." And that's that. Tony goes off and thinks. I love this shot of John when Tony looks back at John. Tony's thinking about what Johnny just suggested, that Phil's gonna go there, and it's gonna be a prolonged incident of death and torture, and Johnny's just like kind of just smoking, looking very smug, spitting out a piece of fingernail. Anything else? You know what? Go fuck yourself. He's my fucking cousin. I love Tony's smile. On one hand, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, go Jersey, but the other part of me that's like, oh, you're fucked.
Oh yeah, I thought it was a terrible resolution. I was like, oh, it's not appropriate at all.
Well, but what do you he knows what's coming. Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't.
Great little shot of Johnny Sack like picking the tobacco off his tongue.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
right,
you think
yeah.
you're Mr. Cool? You still have to pick the fucking tobacco flecks off your tongue, all right, buddy?
He's my fucking cousin, and then he leaves Johnny standing there. That's where we're gonna leave this episode. So that stuff's not going away anytime soon. We're gonna come back to that probably next episode. We're getting into the final beats here. Chris obviously stoned watching Three Amigos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some funny shit. This is a devastating scene in its simplicity. Chris says, "What's wrong with you?" I snorted a little H. I know. I just couldn't stand the pain. And Tony slaps him and beats the shit out of him. "You think you're alone in this?" he screams at him. Last touchdown on the FBI. She really could have fled. She could be in China by now.
Who has their head up their ass now, San Severino?
Yeah.
So stupid.
So cynical about everything else. Not an attractive quality, but I think a form of self-protection to accept what has clearly happened here, which is something very bad, accepts her tacit involvement in getting her killed.
Correct.
San Severino would rather envision that Adriana became Carmen Sandiego overnight. And is like in Hong Kong running a bar with a bunch of North Jersey's money. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But that's it. She has to accept that reality, and as it comes to, they have to move on. The FBI has to keep this thing going. And what about the murder? There's still the terror possibility. Take it over from Long Branch. So
That's how they're gonna show the proof on the receipts, for their funding. Like, oh, well, we have an active terror investigation.
The bureaucratic machine rolling on. That's it.
Interesting mirror shot in this is the last scene of the episode where Tony and Carmela are scoping out this property for the spec house, and they really fuck with you. You hear something moving in leaves. You get a sky with some birds that pans back down to the ground opposite the way it did in the Adriana scene, and you hear movement through the leaves. Oh my God, is she crawling? What happened? Is she alive? Nope, it's Tony and Carmela, and they're checking out the spec house property. Paul alluded to it earlier, the price, what's the cost, and that's really why they chose to do it this way. They want you thinking about what just happened as Tony and Carmela are sitting in this beautiful locale in this place they're going to build a home. But don't forget what all of that home is built on. The misery and the death and the betrayal and the broken dreams and broken families.
Yeah, it's powerful and sad and but beautiful in a kind of poetic way, as you just said.
Yeah.
What are you building this house on? Because this ground that they're looking at is literally where they're going to lay the foundation for this spec house. And what is the foundation of their home? What's the foundation of their conception of family and all this stuff? It all comes together. That's just one reason, but that might be why people really come back to this episode, because it brought these questions about the life and the compromises that we make to the forefront.
Yeah, that's well said. So often, the hits and tits crowd, as you say, they offed Ralphie. Oh my God, Richie Aprile. But this one hit close to home for all of us, and I think it made it really real of exactly what's happening. And there aren't a ton of moments in this show that do that. We see it with Tracy. We see it here, right? They got you. We said this in university. They gotta remind you who we're dealing with.
It's artfully told. It's beautifully constructed. It's quick. It's snappy. It doesn't waste a second. It drives home the consequence and again, in the midst of murder, betrayal, and absolute heartache, there's mundane things happening. There's joking about hand jobs in closets and going on with business ventures and eating ice cream in front of the movies. This is the beauty. This is everything I love about this show in one. Any final thoughts from you guys on this before we wrap up?
We titled this episode Another Suitcase. This was meant, of course, to reference Finn DiTrolio's suitcase in Unidentified Black Males. When he feels threatened in his situation with Vito, his instinct is to pack a suitcase and get the fuck out, right? Of course, Meadow gets upset, and he ends up engaged rather than escaped from his situation.
Oh, did they argue about that suitcase?
I recall. I seem to recall. In this episode, Adriana has a fantasy of packing the red suitcase and perhaps escaping from this as well and driving away in her car. But of course, it is just a fantasy, and we see that suitcase ends up thrown somewhere vaguely out into the Meadowlands. And her car is placed in long-term parking. We do briefly glimpse these ordinary people. I include Adriana, I include Finn, and they sense the danger. It overwhelms them at some point, and they have the correct urge to get away. But because of the trap that is set by circumstances, they can't seem to navigate a successful escape. Ultimately, the mobsters kill Adriana. The FBI helps to set that trap, and she's been doomed for a long time. There was really no way for her to escape, I suppose, really, at any point, which makes her story especially sad because, she's a particularly guileless character. She seems to represent a certain degree of innocence for us, and the way that the show brutalizes it, and the way that brutalization comes to a head in this episode, is so painful to watch. It's also deeply, deeply resonant. And it also lets you know, under no uncertain terms, as I said in the beginning of this episode, there is great evil that takes place here. And we may like these people that transact in it, but it is evil, ultimately. As for Christopher, his great fear is the regularness of life, right? And ultimately he chooses this life that he imagines for himself, this life that is exciting, over the life that he fears is regular. And it just breaks my heart that I think she would have been content to live a regular life with him, right? To paraphrase Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? She could have just done laundry and taxes with him and been happy. But he didn't love her like that.
Jordan took the words right out of my mouth. That was precisely what I was going to say. So.
Anything else? All right. I agree, guys. Thank you very much for a great discussion about long-term parking. It's a season great. I have a feeling it's going to end up on a couple top 3 lists when we're all said and done in our retrospective.
Maybe.
But it's been a hell of a season. I can't... It's astonishing that there's still more to go. Season 5 is a triumph, man. This is just great storytelling. Exciting top to bottom. And we're going to come back with the finale, All Due Respect. The thing you say to somebody right before you tell them something they don't want to hear. And hopefully you want to hear our breakdown of it. I'm Chris D'Amato.
I'm Lily D'Amato.
I'm Paul Mantini.
And I'm Jordan Hugh.
And we will see you next time for All Due Respect.
I got myself a gun.